catastrophe and disaster. It appears many times in this statement. We need to think about it because what is happening, maybe there's an equivalent of a different type. And it happened more than 250 years ago, where the same words were used, catastrophe, disaster, happened on our continent. And you might imagine that some ships come to the shore, they bring guns, and then some go out into the countryside and capture people and send them out. That was the galamsey of that era. And you should ask yourself, if you were around at that time, what would you have done to stop that catastrophe or disaster? So what we are seeing is the beginning of another great catastrophe. And if we sit there as observers, then history would say that it happened, and what were the people around doing at that time? What did they do to stop that catastrophe? Just as we ask, what did our forefathers do to stop slavery and the impoverishment of our continent? With those words, let me now read the statement. It's a long statement, so I'll do it in several parts. There are some parts I will skip so that we can have the momentum. Then there are some parts I will spend time on. I will talk about the introduction. There's also a brief review of the legal framework. I'll skip a lot of it and go to the bottom of that section. And then we'll discuss the concerns of the academy, the way forward, and finally, an agenda for reclamation and rehabilitation, and then the conclusion. So without further ado, let me start to read the statement. Introduction. Ghana is on the brink of an environmental, health, and social disaster as a result of illegal mining. We are rapidly approaching the precipice, despite the effort by successive governments to address this menace. The latest fight against galamsey has failed, in spite of the legal institutional framework that was put in place. For instance, although the Minerals and Mining Amendment Act 2019, Act 995, was passed to specifically redefine the offense of illegal mining, including illegal small-scale mining such as galamsey, and to provide punishment for it, the government has proved unwilling, unable, and or reluctant to enforce the law. The two versions of Operation HALT, the military operation to root out illegal mining, have also petered out. The thrust of the high-profile efforts to stop illegal mining revolved around arresting some of the operators and seizing or burning their equipment, which have not only proved ineffective, but have also posed environmental, health, and social challenges. Illegal mining has a very large footprint in the form of campsites, heavy-duty earth-moving equipment, processing plants, and large communities of migrant laborers that must be fed and housed. This begs three questions, namely, how can heavy equipment reach illegal mining sites without detection? How can large volumes of fuel and materials reach illegal mining sites without detection? And how can financiers, providing the large amounts of money necessary for illegal mining, conduct their financing and investment of activities without detection? Illegal mining continues to thrive because the kingpins who supply and fund the operations have not been vigorously pursued and prosecuted. More detective work to identify and hold the financiers and suppliers liable for illegal mining should be the centerpiece of a rejuvenated fight against galamsey. Civil society has made countless demands on successive governments, ranging from simply enforcing the law to possibly confiscating lands on which the activity occurs. Some traditional authorities have taken it upon themselves to prevent surface mining activities within their jurisdictions, challenging or invalidating licenses and permits issued by government bodies. Some traditional authorities have destooled or threatened to destool chiefs who are complicit in or condone galamsey activities in their jurisdictions. Meanwhile, there's a continued upsurge of galamsey in our rural communities, stimulating truancy among school-going males and loss of lives and injuries as a result of the collapse of galamsey pits, while the environment is being degraded with impunity. The scale and extent of surface mining, with or without official license, buttressed with the use of arms and offensive weapons to protect workers, property, and equipment, are a major threat to national security, peace, and stability. Against this backdrop, the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, GAAS, can no longer sit in silence. The Academy is therefore appealing as a matter of urgency to the executive, parliament, the judiciary, and non-state actors, such as the National House of Chiefs, Trade Union Congress, civil society, professional associations, media, faith-based organizations, and students to take collective action to stop the existential threat posed by illegal mining. A review of the basic legal framework. As I said, I will skip some of that and move to the bottom part. In short, the act that governs the operation of mines has effective methods, good mining practices, and health and safety rules and protection for the environment. Regrettably, however, successive governments have simply been incapable of translating these fine rules into action. There has been an inexplicable unpreparedness, unwillingness, and or inability of the governments to apply and enforce the law, set up the required structures, and resource them to work well. These, in part, account for the lack of proper regulation in the industry. A major drawback to the legal framework is the passage of the Environmental Protection Mining in the Forest Reserve Regulation 2022 LI 2462, which allows unfettered access to the forest reserves of the country through the granting of forest entry permits for mining by the Forestry Commission. LI 2462 was intended to bridge the gaps in environmental regulation in the mining sector and replace the inadequate and unclear guidelines of the Environmental Protection Agency that had governed mining in forest reserves since 2000. We consider this legislation to be inimical to good mining practices and environmental sustainability because it has the potential to attract more unregulated mining investment into the forest reserves. This situation is compounded by doubts about the capacity of the Forestry Commission to implement and enforce mining regulations. Concerns of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. GAAS is deeply concerned about the current crisis generated by the wanton destruction of our environment by surface mining. The Academy is concerned that the environment that provides all the natural resources for our well-being as a people is being destroyed, and that citizens have become powerless, watching, and not able to do anything about it. GAAS concerns are because, 1, the topsoils in vegetated areas and the volume and quality of water in the riverbeds and other water bodies contain all the necessary elements of biotic nature, that's the living resources, including plants, animals, mushrooms, and microbes, and abiotic nature, non-living resources such as soil, winds, currents, temperatures, essential chemicals, example, carbon, oxygen, rocks, substrates, and sediments. These elements create a sustainable soil and water structure for production. 3, production is maintained because of the delicate and intricate balance between these elements. 4, it is through sustained production that energy, captured and accumulated in food substances and other materials, and matter, assimilated substances that create growth and which are noted as productivity, are distributed in a structured manner to create an ecosystem. 5, terrestrial and aquatic productivity is maintained in natural environments, on agricultural and plantation fields, and in fishery locations in rivers, lakes, ponds, lagoons, estuaries, and the shallow and deep waters of the ocean. 6, the disruption of this ecosystem arrangement reduces productivity and compromises the environment. 7, The loss of productivity reduces and/or completely depletes the goods and services that the ecosystem can provide for socioeconomic development. 8, water bodies are destroyed, water is polluted, and potable water is unavailable or difficult to find. This generation is therefore creating conditions to deprive our children, grandchildren, and future generations of water, a basic necessity for survival. 9, the health of communities in areas with surface mining is compromised, and hitherto uncommon diseases and medical conditions associated with heavy metal poisoning, including cancers, birth defects, kidney dysfunction, and nervous system disorders, are aggressively manifesting themselves in our communities. And 10, the phenomenon described in 6, 7, 8, and 9 are occurring in almost all parts of Ghana at alarming rates and as a result of surface mining. GAAS demands that this situation be addressed immediately to prevent a future catastrophe of human suffering from this environmental damage to our landscapes and waterscapes. The way forward. Crisis times and situations of this kind demand very drastic policy actions, especially when Ghana is committed to sustainable development as declared in signed multilateral environmental agreements such as the Sustainable Development Goals Agenda 2030, the Africa We Want Agenda 2063, the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, and the Montreal Kunming Global Biodiversity Framework. We are aware that illegal mining and the destruction of our forests are driven by economic as well as political factors. There's a lack of jobs, and therefore attempts to stop illegal mining will face serious resistance since livelihoods will be threatened. However, there's a need for effective regulation and a strong political will to ensure that livelihoods are not unduly threatened, while the wanton destruction of the environment is curtailed. Truth be told, funding of political parties has benefited from illegal mining, and politicians have flouted regulations on mining with impunity. We demand that going forward, all political party manifestos explicitly state how the parties intend to address this menace. We will hold them responsible and accountable during their term of office. We demand that traditional authorities educate and mobilize their people to combat illegal mining in their jurisdiction, and we call upon civil society to always hold miners environmentally accountable. Accordingly, GAAS demands that government implement the following policy actions. 1, declare a moratorium on all kinds of surface mining activities around river bodies. 2, revoke all reconnaissance and prospecting license, mining leases, and small-scale mining licenses in forest reserves and other fragile ecosystems such as key biodiversity areas. 3, revoke the Environmental Protection Mining in Forest Reserve Regulation 2022 LI 2462. And 4, establish a plan for land reclamation in all areas destroyed by illegal mining and other forms of surface mining. A moratorium of 10 years or more around river bodies would allow the fragile ecosystem to recover from the destruction. This may not guarantee full recovery in the areas affected, but it will at least help to rebuild resilience of those components of our ecosystems, including water bodies and forest reserves, to support ongoing efforts at reducing biodiversity loss, contribute to adaptation to and mitigation of climate change, avoid land and water degradation, and support the global goal of the decade on ecosystem restoration from 2021 to 2030. Surface mining, especially in forest reserves, defeats the main purpose of such reserves because it undermines the fabric of sustainability of the ecosystem in areas where the livelihoods of our local people are guaranteed. When this happens, the subsistence rural economy of the people disintegrates and they become deprived, leading to extreme poverty. Therefore, there is therefore the need to conduct an immediate forensic environmental audit of all surface prospecting license, mining leases, and small-scale mining licenses in forest reserves. Any license or leaseholder found to have breached the environmental regulations should immediately lose the license or lease. Those in good standing should be offered new concessions outside of the forest reserves and given the necessary support to enable them to re-establish their operations in new locations. During the transitional period, they should be subjected to more rigorous environmental monitoring and assessment to ensure that the harm is either eliminated or drastically reduced. Certainly, there should be no renewals if their leases and licenses in the forest reserves expire before they are completely relocated. We at the Academy, while the Academy would have demanded immediate revocation of licenses and leases in forest reserves, we are fully aware of the legal implications. We know that investors aggrieved by the revocation of licenses, and permits may resort to litigation. That is why the Academy is proposing an audit-based revocation, strict implementation of the laws, allocation of new concessions to operators in good standing, and non-renewal of licenses and leases when they expire. The Academy finds the enactment of LI 2462 not simply a troubling contradiction, but a completely tone-deaf response to the problem of illegal mining. It beggars belief that when we have proven to be so incapable of regulating illegal mining in open spaces, the Minister of Environment, Science and Technology and Innovation and the Board of the Environmental Protection Agency, without the necessary stakeholder consultation, will send subsidiary legislation to Parliament in 2022 to license mining in already fragile forest reserves. It is even more shocking that Parliament dropped the ball by allowing this LI to gestate without annulling it under Article 11, Section 7 powers enshrined in the 1992 Constitution to protect Ghanaians. The Academy demands the immediate revocation of LI 2462. It was enacted in extreme bad faith. What it seeks to do is not in the best interest of the people of Ghana. The conservation of forest is in fact meant for posterity, generations of Ghanaians yet unborn, and it can foster future scientific research to provide solutions to the three global environmental crises, namely climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. Literally, the entry into forests and other reserve landscapes goes against all programs of work of the multilateral environmental agreements to prevent land and water degradation, advance adaptation and mitigate climate change, and reduce and stop biodiversity loss. An agenda for reclamation and rehabilitation. As a nation, we are at a crossroad. GAAS therefore wishes to impress upon both government and stakeholders the urgency of adopting the following measures while we rethink the best way to exploit our natural resources. 1. A geospatial analysis over a 10-year period using remote sensing geographic information systems to show the open source of illegal mining in our landscapes and waterscapes and assess the damage to our habitats. 2. A national audit of the soils and water bodies polluted by agrochemicals and hazardous organometallic chemicals such as mercury from mining. There should be suggested solutions by experts to address the problem. 3. A survey for an assessment of microplastic suspensions floating in our fresh and marine water bodies, which are consumed by aquatic organisms and eventually enter our food chain. 4. A survey of health implications for communities in the surface mining areas, and an assessment of the impact of mining on the health of the people so affected. And 5. A survey of livelihood losses of communities affected by mining and an estimate of socio-economic implications such as the loss of employment, especially for the youth. We believe that these surveys and analysis will put Ghana in a better position to assess the damage done and to come up with a comprehensive plan of action to reclaim our health, lands, and forests. In making these demands, we remind the government that state and non-state institutions whose mandates are to protect and secure the peaceful functioning of the Ghanaian environmental space should be adequately resourced and should not be under any political influence or pressure whatsoever. Conclusion: illegal mining is destroying the country's lands, rivers, and forests. Although mining has been practiced over decades in Ghana, the wanton environmental destruction has taken a new dimension with adverse consequences, such as the destruction of water bodies and farmlands, and the use of hazardous chemicals with long-term damage to our health and vital organs. As we have seen, half-hearted attempts to stop illegal mining will not work. What is required is effective regulation and its enforcement, which must be backed by strong political will and commitment, a common understanding of the threats posed by illegal mining, and a stakeholder consensus on the way forward. This is a clarion call to all Ghanaians to rally behind a good cause that holds government and community leaders accountable. Collective and sustained efforts are required to deal with the menace of illegal mining. We invite the media to commence and sustain a strong movement that names and shames persons who are found to be behind this menace, while highlighting and rewarding those strongly at the forefront of fighting illegal mining. We also invite Parliament, the judiciary, and non-state actors such as the National House of Chiefs, Trade Union Congress, civil society, professional associations, faith-based organizations, and students, indeed the entire Ghanaian populace, to join forces in combating illegal mining and its deleterious effects, which pose an existential threat to all of us and future generations. The Academy is committed and ready to collaborate with all stakeholders in the fight to stop illegal mining and its destructive effects on our people and our land. Thank you.